A naked sculpture suddenly appeared in the center of the city. People around started gathering to observe, and took out their phones to capture the moment. As the sun emerged, the temperature rose, causing the resin on the sculpture to melt. A bizarre scene unfolded. As it turned out, the sculpture was made from a living person. This was already the second case in the city, and the police had no leads. The serial killer was still at large, but little did anyone expect that the young man before them would eventually solve the case, and that person is none other than our protagonist, Dong-soo. On that evening, he walked alone in the dark alley, humming a song. At a corner, a black van came into view. Organ hunter Eric jumped out of the van wielding an axe, catching Dong-soo's attention, but unbeknownst to him, there was another person lying in wait. The person tightly gripped Dong-soo's neck, choking him until he lost consciousness. Dong-soo was taken to an unlicensed clinic, where the doctor intended to remove his eyes to sell them. However, the entire surgical procedure was peculiar. Dong-soo's eyes were clearly removed, yet his body could still perceive visual sensations. Just as the doctor answered a phone call, blood began to flow back into Dong-soo's eye sockets. The incision on the chest unexpectedly extended flesh-colored tentacles that joined together, miraculously healing the wound. He fumbled and crawled down from the operating table, attempting to insert his left eye back into the socket. Several red tentacles extended from his eyeball and burrowed into their original position. This startled the doctor, who quickly called for assistance. Dong-soo jumped out of the window, losing his right eyeball in the process, but the connection between Dong-soo and his right eye remained intact. He could see through the perspective of his right eye's new owner, who was sitting at a desk. There was a notebook on the desk with PL engraved on it. The person seemed to have a fascination with astrology, and based on the brushes on the table, they appeared to be an artist. As that person applied eye drops, the vision from the right eye faded away. At that time, the city was experiencing a series of murders. The killer disguised female corpses as sculptures, and placed them on streets where pedestrians passed by. People initially mistook them for artworks, and took photos to share, until the wounds on the corpses started bleeding, and tears of blood flowed from their eyes, catching the attention of the police. The modus operandi of the killer was bizarre and brutal. They would carve the letters PL on the bodies as a signature, similar to how an artist signs their work. This PL could be the person who took Dong-soo's right eye. There have already been 2 similar cases, and the victims have no connection to each other. The police have no leads. There is a person named Jae-young-gu in the police station. His grandmother is a famous witch. Every time Jae-young-gu finds a crucial clue, his nose bleeds. This is not a secret within the police station, and everyone sees his nosebleeds as a sign of a breakthrough in the case. Placing their hopes on Jae-young-gu, he decides to start by investigating the resin used on the bodies, aiming to find the source of purchase and the sellers. On the other side, Dong-soo didn't undergo any changes due to the loss of his eye. He continued to work as usual. On that day, a few thugs came to cause trouble and bully his boss. Dong-soo intervened and tried to stop them, but the thugs beat him up and even brandished a knife. Dong-soo had one of his ears cut off, which frightened the thugs and made them flee. In reality, Dong-soo had a secret ability. Since he was young, he could repair injuries to his body, even healing from severe fractures. Tentacles sprouted from the severed ear, and it was the same with his wounds. The tentacles from both sides fused together, and his ear was restored to its original state. Dong-soo viewed this ability as a burden, but for organ hunters, it presented a lucrative business opportunity. After listening to the doctor's description of that night, the organ hunters were searching everywhere for Dong-soo. Irang was secretly eavesdropping, and was well aware of the organ hunters' conversation. At that moment, Dong-soo's eye socket began to ache, and continuing like this was not a viable option. Dong-soo decided to retrieve his eye, and went to find Eric, the person who had kidnapped him that day. Little did Dong-soo know that the hunters were actively searching for him. They were desperate to find him, so when they saw him approaching, there was no way they would let him go. Dong-soo was cornered by them in a narrow alley. Given the situation, Dong-soo had no choice but to temporarily abandon his search for his eye and escape. Fortunately, he had no fear of death. He ran across the train tracks, blocking the hunters on the other side. Irang, who had been secretly tracking Dong-soo, appeared and pretended to guide him, but actually led him into a dead end. Irang drew a knife and slashed Dong-soo's leg, and true to form, the wound rapidly healed. At that moment, footsteps could be heard at the end of the alley. Irang seized Dong-soo and pushed him over the railing. Dong-soo crashed onto a car, limbs contorted, but in the next second, he got up and ran towards the depths of the small road. Irang revealed a satisfied smile. The next day, a new victim appeared near the female employee Sunhee's company. The body was coated in resin and displayed openly like a work of art, bearing the signature PL. Sunhee hurried to work at the company, and her good mood remained unaffected by the presence of the dead body, because the senior she admired, Jin Seob, had returned from his trip. Now they could spend time together again. On the way to have lunch, Sunhee inadvertently hummed a melody. It was indeed Dongsu's anonymously uploaded original composition on the internet. Jin Seob felt a sharp pain in his right eye upon hearing this piece of music, and Dongsu once again saw through his right eye. It turned out that Jin Seob was the recipient of the transplant. In the evening, the visual connection resumed, and Dongsu, through his own eye, saw Jin Seob's art book with the prominent PL signature. He found it familiar. He searched online, and discovered that the person who took away his right eye was a serial psychopathic murderer. Meanwhile, Jae-young-gu was working overtime at the police station. As he pondered over the crime scene photos, he unintentionally noticed Dongsu wearing an eye patch, causing his nose to bleed. This was the signal that he had found the right lead. The police immediately started searching for Dongsu. The next day, following the clues obtained through the visual connection, Dongsu arrived in front of Jin Seob's company building. He recognized Sunhee passing by, and wanted to ask her about the situation. However, she found Dongsu's behavior suspicious, and took her friend inside the company. During lunchtime, Sunhee went to have a meal with Jin Seob. Surprisingly, the delivery person's phone ringtone was a song written by Dongsu. Jin Seob felt his eyes hurting again upon hearing it. Dongsu initiated the connection, and saw the other person in a rice soup restaurant. Nevertheless, rice soup restaurants were everywhere, and Dongsu couldn't find the exact location for a moment. At that moment, the connection opened again, revealing that Sunhee was sharing Dongsu's cover song. This time, Jin Seob looked at the promotional screen inside the restaurant, and Dongsu successfully identified the name of the place. When he arrived, he coincidentally brushed past Jin Seob. Dongsu caught sight of Sunhee, but the male colleague was sitting in the wrong position. Dongsu walked straight to them. He was mistaken for a pervert, and grabbed by the other person. Dongsu explained that he was just looking for someone. He asked Sunhee where the person who sat across from her had gone, but her male colleague irritably replied that there was no one, and kicked Dongsu out. Dongsu didn't wait for the next connection, and decided to try his luck at an astrology store. Because the perpetrator had a zodiac pattern on their computer, Dongsu recognized the symbol formed by the letters PL. He asked the medium what it meant. The medium said it represented Pluto, and the dates of both victims' deaths coincided with the alignment of Pluto and Venus. Venus symbolizes beauty and art, while Pluto represents destruction and rebirth, which aligns with Jin Seob's modus operandi. The next two alignments occur on December 20th, 25th, and end on January 6th. Soon after, Jae-young-gu received a call from his subordinate, informing him that someone had inquired about Pluto at the astrology store. He immediately summoned the medium for questioning. It turned out that Jae-young-gu had already discovered that it was a zodiac symbol, and had warned the local mediums in advance. When he asked, he found out that the person who went to the astrology store was the man with an eye patch. He immediately added Dongsu to the list of suspects. Sunhee is staying overnight at Jin Seob's house. Unable to sleep, she came out for a walk, and accidentally found Jin Seob's art book. Unable to resist, she secretly flipped through it, and doubts filled her mind. Shortly after, the fourth corpse appeared. Sunhee looked at the news footage, and made a horrifying discovery. The victim's appearance matched the design sketches in Jin Seob's art book perfectly. The situation on the police side has become chaotic. If the killer is truly following astrology in their crimes, the next significant date is approaching on January 6th. Dongsu blended into the crowd to observe, but he was unexpectedly discovered by organ hunters. They broke through the police cordon, and chased after him, with the police quickly following suit upon seeing Dongsu. Dongsu flipped and jumped downstairs, but he was caught by someone lying in wait underground. But Dongsu realized that his reflexes had become stronger, and he managed to dodge the attacker's strikes. Eric, who was following closely behind, rushed forward and severed Dongsu's arm. He picked up the severed hand, curious to see how Dongsu would reattach it. In the next moment, tentacles emerged from Dongsu's wound. Just as Eric was about to capture him, however, he was suddenly knocked down by the unexpected appearance of Irang. Police voices could be heard from outside, and she quickly pulled Dongsu to escape. Later, she saved her number in Dongsu's phone. Dongsu didn't want to interact with her, and turned to leave. Inside the company building, Sunhee finds Jin Seob on the rooftop for a private conversation. She says she saw the art book, and questions whether he is the killer. At that moment, a phone ringtone sounds, exposing Sun He's accomplice. He awkwardly comes out and apologizes. Jin Seob sneers, takes off his coat to cover Sun He, punches her unconscious, then kicks the male colleague, forcing him towards the railing, leaving him hanging halfway. The next moment, Sun He's phone rings, causing Jin Seob's eyes to ache. Dong-soo immediately sees the synchronized footage, and rushes to the company building, but it's too late. Jin Seob pushes the male colleague off the building, and the body explodes in front of Dong-soo. Jin Seob grabs the conscious Sun He, and forcefully breaks her neck. Dong-soo is frightened by the shared footage. At this moment, Sun He's phone ringtone stops, and Jin Seob's pain disappears. The cunning killer immediately realizes that the eye pain might be related to the song. Dong-soo takes advantage of the chaos, and sneaks into the company, not realizing that Irang is following behind. He goes up the stairs, and perceptive Jin Seob hears the footsteps, carefully hiding in the darkness. Once Dong-soo enters the office, Jin Seob grabs his coat and comes out. Dong-soo unintentionally turns his head, and recognizes that tweed coat. He immediately rushes into the restroom to catch the person. He forcefully pulls the man washing his hands, and asks where he hid the coat. Jin Seob is hiding in the cubicle, and the man walks out of the restroom speechlessly. Dong-soo realizes that the murderer must be here. He quickly finds the locked cubicle. He tries to climb over from the adjacent cubicle. Jin Seob deliberately hides his appearance from Dong-soo with his back turned. He takes out a sculpting tool from his pocket. He nails Dong-soo's palm to the wall. Dong-soo walks out of the cubicle in pain. Unexpectedly, a security guard rushes in, without listening to any explanation. The guard pins Dong-soo down on the ground. Dong-soo happens to see the killer's leather shoes. He unwillingly grabs hold of that shoe. Jin Seob looks down and assesses the situation. He notices that the wounds on Dong-soo's hand are rapidly healing. Dong-soo is escorted downstairs by the security guard. On the way, he encounters Sun He's close friend. The woman recognizes Dong-soo as the stalker. She recklessly pounces on him. She tears off Dong-soo's blindfold. The people present are frightened and step back. Whispering, they say, "He has no eyes." Jin Seob, among the crowd, hears this and leaves the scene. The security guard prepares to take Dong-soo to the police station. At a critical moment, Irang pretends to be a passerby. She swiftly stuns two security guards with an electric shock. She cuts the zip ties on Dong-soo's hand. Irang throws the stun baton to Dong-soo. Dong-soo takes it and stuns the guards. He follows Irang and leaves the company. Subsequently, the police arrive at the scene to check the surveillance footage. Although Dong-soo's actions are suspicious, the timing of his entry into the building is almost simultaneous with the fall, which rules out his involvement in the crime. Jae-gu can only focus on Dong-soo's accomplice, Irang, especially when the suspect was apprehended. The mention of the coat made him anxious. Jae-gu goes to talk to the deceased team leader, Jin Seob. Yet, Jin Seob gives no information in his response. On Dong-soo's side, Irang tells him about the existence of connections. Irang says she was saved by such people in her childhood, which sparked her interest in connections. The organ hunter also wants to investigate in detail. People like Dong-soo, who possess connections, are related to the top domestic corporation Zhengdao Pharmaceuticals. It is believed that they were modified through experiments with pediatric drugs, resulting in extraordinary self-healing abilities. Dong-soo sees that Irang knows so much, so he confesses about his eyes, and the two of them temporarily form an alliance. That night, Dong-soo sees the killer's perspective again. Jin Seob is watching his online video, and confirms that the eye pain is related to a particular song. Furthermore, he recognizes Dong-soo's voice. Dong-soo also realizes through the footage that the song can trigger connections. Irang believes that this killer is not to be trifled with, and advises Dong-soo to be cautious in his actions. Due to Dong-soo's song not being copyrighted, it was covered and released by a famous singer. Jin Seob finds that singer, and intends to meet the original artist under the pretext of hiring them as a spokesperson for an advertisement. Fortunately, Dong-soo never appeared, and all the received fees were donated. Jin Seob temporarily can't find the person, while Irang has new developments. While working as an organ hunter, she learns that Jin Seob is seriously ill, and doesn't have much time left. The hunter's subordinate, Eugene, is monitoring him. They want to see if there's anything unusual about his eyeballs. Suddenly, there's commotion coming from the earpiece. The small pet that the hunter keeps is missing. Everyone starts searching anxiously. They discover a bug. The man with long hair immediately thinks of Irang. That woman stayed here for a while, claiming to charge her pen. It turns out she was secretly planting the bug. At this moment, Irang finds Eugene, and confirms the killer's apartment through him. She tells Dong-soo the information she knows. While they are talking, Dongsu's eyes start to hurt. Dongsu sees Jin Seob drawing him. The other person has already guessed the identity of the eye's owner. He writes in his notebook, "This time, it's my turn to find you." Not only that, but he also intentionally shows his design drafts. The target this time is 3 young girls. Jin Seob, being flamboyant, immediately drives to find Dongsu that night. He intentionally lures him onto the street, leading to Dongsu getting caught by the police. The police immediately interrogate Dongsu. Dongsu tries to explain that he can see visual scenes related to the cases. Jianggu, because of his grandmother being a witch, is willing to believe this explanation. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Dongsu reveals the next group of victims. The two of them go to a place without surveillance to have a detailed conversation. Dongsu twists his palm to remove the handcuffs. He then returns to normal in front of Jianggu. He briefly explains his bodily abilities. Due to a transplant surgery, he can share the visual perspective with the murderer. Dongsu pleads with the police to release him, as it's the only way to catch the killer, while Jianggu disagrees with releasing him. Dongsu can only remove his handcuffs and jump downstairs. He desperately escapes from the police station. Dongsu intentionally sets fire to an empty school to prevent harm to the children. Then he calls to warn the police station, demanding that all elementary schools be closed, or else he will burn them all down. Jianggu immediately applies for the closure of all elementary schools, citing the threat of terrorism. Meanwhile, Jin Seob captures the doctor and learns about the connection. After obtaining the desired information, he decisively kills the doctor. Eugene, who was responsible for tracking, notices Jin Seob's absence and decides to go to his house to investigate. Irang follows behind, but in the blink of an eye, Eugene disappears. She rushes forward to investigate, but is ambushed by the other party. Irang retaliates and kills the attacker. The next day, Eugene's body is discovered by the citizens. Irang finds Dongsu and advises him not to go home recently, providing him with a hiding place. He was curious why the other person was helping. Upon hearing this, Irang threw a small knife to Dongsu and cut herself while holding his hand. Irang's wound slowly healed, revealing that she also had a connection. Dongsu was delighted to find someone like him, but danger was approaching. Jin Seob captured the singer and issued a challenge to Dongsu using the connection. Jin Seob used his hand to dig into the singer's wound, deliberately showing it to Dongsu. He asked Dongsu to come and confront him face to face. Then he picked up an iron hook and knocked out the singer. Dongsu decided to find Jin Seob, but unexpectedly, an organ hunter showed up and captured his grandfather, whom Dongsu knew. Irang asked Dongsu to rescue the person, while she stayed to deal with the hunter. Dongsu arrived at the scene, but before he could free his grandfather, he was ambushed and severely injured. The hunter tied up Dongsu's hands and was about to kill his grandfather. Seeing this, Dongsu gritted his teeth and knocked down the hunter, who swung a wrench at him. Dongsu withstood the attack, kicked the hunter down, and used his knee to hold the hunter's neck. Just when he managed to knock one out, the fat one got up again. Dongsu turned on the chainsaw, brought his hand close to the blade, endured the intense pain, and sawed through the iron chain and his wrist. The next moment, the wound rapidly healed. Dongsu grabbed a wrench and knocked out the fat one. The grandfather, who had been watching the whole time, stared wide-eyed and shouted the word that had haunted Dongsu's life: monster. Dongsu was almost frozen in place, and the wrench slipped from his powerless hand. Seizing the opportunity, the fat man smashed his head from behind. Dongsu was consumed by rage. He turned around and faced the fearless fat man, delivering several blows that knocked him down. He grabbed a hoe and was about to strike. At a critical moment, Dongsu threw away his weapon. If he killed the fat man, he would truly become a monster. Dongsu released his grandfather, intending to leave, but he was stopped by the old man. His grandfather urged him to leave quickly, not to get hurt, and not to be captured. On the other side, Irang was captured by the group of hunters. She deliberately claimed that Eugene had been killed by Jin Seob, and that he was the serial killer. Upon hearing this, Eric was enraged and wounded Irang with an axe. Tentacles emerged from Irang's wound, and her skin quickly returned to its pristine state. The leader, Max, was excited, but the next moment, he was knocked over by Irang. She rushed towards the hunters behind her, snatched Eric's axe, and threw it straight at the soldiers by the door. Irang leaped down to the first floor to escape the scene. Max instructed Eric to follow her, unaware that she was being followed. Irang went to meet up with Dongsu. Unlike Dongsu, who fears becoming a monster, Irang believes that they are superior beings compared to ordinary people. She believes that there are more superhumans here, and that one day they will dominate. At this moment, Dongsu's eyes started to ache, and Jin Seob was communicating with him, requesting a meeting tonight at 11 o'clock. On the other side, here was progress in the murder case of Eugene. The police found a camera at the crime scene, and immediately took it back for recovery. The camera was filled with Jin Seob's covertly taken photos, almost every day except during the time of the murder. A subordinate reported receiving a case, suspecting that the popular singer Z had been kidnapped. Time quickly approached 11 o'clock, and Dongsu waited for Jin Seob. Jin Seob, fully armed, got out of the car, and pressed a button on the remote control, releasing a large amount of poisonous gas in the alley. Dongsu ran over with a knife, but he was overwhelmed by the toxic gas, and collapsed to the ground. Jin Seob squatted down to sense Dongsu's heartbeat, until the strong pulsation ceased. However, in an instant, the vital signs representing life returned, and Jin Seob's eyes widened with excitement. He tied Dongsu to the carriage, establishing a connection to communicate with him. Jin Seob found a better toy. If he could possess every part of Dongsu completely, perhaps he could achieve eternal life. When Dongsu woke up again, he saw the doctor suspended in mid-air. Jin Seob pushed the singer forward. Right in front of him, Jin Seob used pliers to remove Dongsu's little finger, and immediately, a fleshy tentacle emerged from the severed stump. Jin Seob then plucked the singer's finger. Acting like a student conducting a scientific experiment, he aimed Dongsu's severed finger at the singer's wound, and the tentacle immediately extended into the muscle tissue. The singer's finger quickly healed. Then he aligned the other severed finger with Dongsu's wound. Dongsu's palm extended tentacles, and successfully fused with the singer's severed finger. Jin Seob happily smiled, and promised to release Dongsu, but Dongsu had to merge with him. Meanwhile, the hunter followed Irang to an abandoned amusement park. They attempted to find her kind, but were discovered by Irang. Irang rushed out and killed the pursuer, then found a giant named Shiden. She led him to meet Eric, and the giant immediately started attacking. Irang also dealt with others separately, and both of them had far superior physical abilities. The giant grabbed Max, and swiftly tore off his head. Meanwhile, the police on the other side were not useless. They confirmed through surveillance that Jin Seob was the one who kidnapped the singer. They found the murderer's location, and contacted special police for support. At this time, Dongsu and the singer were locked in a cold storage room, and the singer was on the verge of death. The singer asked Dongsu to give up on saving him, and then he stopped breathing. The singer's death deeply affected Dongsu, and he gritted his teeth, and broke free from the handcuffs. Unexpectedly, both hands were severed. Although they could heal instantly, the pain was still real. After Irang dealt with the hunter, she immediately went to find Dongsu. She discovered Dongsu locked in the cold storage, and was about to rescue him when she was ambushed, and scratched by Jin Seob. Irang's wounds gradually healed. Jin Seob was overjoyed. He was curious that there was another woman with a connection ability, wondering if this power could be inherited by the next generation. Irang found it amusing and asked, "Are you planning to take over my body, and go have children with Dongsu?" Jin Seob was angered by her attitude, and immediately swung his knife at her. The two instantly engaged in a fight, and surprisingly, Jin Seob's abilities surpassed Irang's. He threw Irang downstairs, causing her wrist to fracture, but it eerily twisted back to its original form. At this moment, the sound of engines could be heard from outside. It was Jianggu and the others arriving. Jin Seob attempted to escape through the back door, but Irang took the opportunity to rescue Dongsu, and instructed him to chase after Jin Seob, while she attended to other matters. The giant guarding the door collided with Jianggu, who was armed. The police fired 2 shots at him, and the giant fell to the ground. But in an instant, the bullet holes disappeared, and the giant got up and knocked down Jianggu. Irang appeared right after, expressing that the one who knew too much had to die, and she wanted to kill Jianggu to silence him. The little police officer outside heard the gunshots, and was about to climb through the window to help, but Jin Seob stabbed him under the chin with a knife. He held the knife, and waited for Dongsu, humming a song as he activated the connection. Dongsu saw himself through Jin Seob's right eye, creating a strange visual effect as if they were truly one entity. Jin Seob aimed the gun at Dongsu, wanting to test whether the bullets were faster, or Dongsu's healing speed. Jin Seob continuously shot at Dongsu, but Dongsu kept running forward. The blood sprayed from the bullet wounds rapidly returned to his body, and his left eye was also injured. Jin Seob ran out of bullets, and Dongsu grabbed him by the throat. At the moment, Dongsu suddenly felt a sharp pain. The wound that had pierced his eye healed, and the exploded eyeball returned to its original state. Jin Seob covered his right eye, and Dongsu removed his eye patch. Tentacles emerged from his empty eye socket, and his original right eye seemed to react, and struggled to reach Dong-su. In the end, Dong-su successfully reclaimed his eye. He grabbed Jin Seob's head, and started beating him violently, then picked up the knife. He was about to kill Jin Seob, but was stopped by Jae-young-gu. The police officer grabbed Dong-su's hand, and told him to hand the culprit over to the police, instead of becoming a murderer. It turns out that Irang didn't kill Jae-young-gu, and upheld the final line. Dong-su was persuaded by Jae-young-gu, and let go of his weapon. Irang suddenly felt a chill, and pulled Dong-su, saying, "They're coming. We need to leave quickly." Then the two of them rushed out of the factory, leaving Jae-young-gu behind, who suddenly had a nosebleed. Not only that, but even stranger things happened. Tentacles emerged from Jin Seob's eye sockets, and the singer's transplanted pinky finger felt a slight impulse, as if it was being summoned. Outside the abandoned factory, several helicopters blocked Dong-su's path. A new storm was about to come, and this season came to an end. The superhuman setting, combined with visual sharing, is not a novel theme, but it carries Takashi Miike's strong style, with wicked and magnificent visual effects. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it.